The distant hum of the subway echoed through the dark, damp tunnels beneath the city, a constant reminder of the tower's downfall, forced by the King's Court to retreat to the outskirts of Dreadford and take refuge in the sewers like rats. Most vampires had grown weary of hiding. They longed for a fight, held back only by their former leadership. Since the High Priestess assumed control, however, the preparation for war had been relentless, like a storm gathering strength. On this Christmas Eve, Antoinette and Akasha shared their anguish in the quiet shadows.
I don't understand why you care so much about this.
Because he's my big brother. I don't know. We used to be closer, but ever since what Victoria did to him, he was never the same. Never trusted anyone again.
You don't trust anyone either. Always sulking around the shadows with your secrets.
That's different.
How?
Because it's me! Besides, we can't see Mom anymore, so all I have is him and Jolene.
Why don't you go see her if you miss it so much?
Have you seen her? She's crazy!
Takes one to know one.
Before Akasha could retort, a knock on the door interrupted them. Oppenheimer stepped in, a mischievous grin on his face.
Hey, ladies. May I interrupt?
Go away, Oppie.
Akasha said, barely looking up.
You better leave.
Antoinette stood up and pushed him out.
I want to talk to my sister. Alone.
Listen, punk. You can pull that serial killer posture with the bloodlings around here, but not with me. I'll dump your ashes in a cat litter without a second thought.
They stared off in silence.
Don't worry, Nettie. Let him in. I'll catch you later, okay?
Antoinette gave her a look and Akasha nodded.
Consider this your lucky day, punk.
Antoinette said as she left, closing the door behind her.
She's full of herself these days, ain't she?
If your blood was as thick as hers after only 10 years walking, you would be too.
You're damn right I would.
So what do you want?
Well, since you so kindly asked with that knife to my face to join my plan, I thought I'd let you in on my next move.
Oh, now you want my help. What went wrong with your genius plan?
Nothing went wrong. Perfectly calculated.
Potato, potato.
Oppenheimer winced in anger but tried to remain calm and friendly.
Will you help me? Jolene is coming too.
Ah, no. She's a pain.
It'll be like old times. Come on.
Thank you. Bye.
Oppenheimer growled and stood up.
Well, don't you want to know where we're going?
She shrugged.
We are gonna make a prison break at the dead man's prison.
That caught Akasha's full attention.
You're a liar. No one knows where it is.
Oh, what I do. As I said, my plan was perfectly calculated. So, can I interest you in some explosive fun?
A grin spread across Akasha's face, but then she narrowed her eyes, a flicker of suspicion.
Why tonight, though?
Oppenheimer's expression darkened with mischievous delight.
Because it's Christmas Eve. Who in their right mind in the King's Court would expect something like that tonight? They're probably having a party or something.
Akasha's grin widened, mirroring his.
You're insane.
Exactly.
As they made their way through the subway tunnels, the tension in the air was replaced by a sense of shared purpose. When they reached Jolene, she was leaning casually against a wall, hands in her pockets.
So you convinced little Miss Pandemonia? Good for you.
Yes, we're going on a family trip, little sisters.
Awesome.
Could you be any more boring? I think you can do better.
Akasha teased, making Jolene raise an eyebrow.
It seems we have a family feud here. This might be entertaining.
Pagliacci, what are you doing here?
We are in town on tour. I'm just passing by to announce myself and my crew to the High Priestess.
I am sorry, but this is a show I'll have to miss.
Well, it's a pity. You should join us. You would make a terrific clown.
I hate clowns.
Then why do you dress like one?
I may look like a clown, but I always have the last laugh, while you make people laugh at you for a living.
Nice comeback. Did Morgan teach you that?
Oppenheimer, Akasha and Jolene glared at the clown as his laughter grew louder.
Pagliacci. She will see you now.
The clown sauntered off in the direction of the room with the huge mirror, still laughing. Elsa approached Akasha, her demeanor cold and standoffish.
I see what you're doing with my grandchild, Akasha, and I don't care for it. You should rethink your strategy before I decide to intervene in your affairs.
I do not care for you meddling in my business, Elsa. Intelligence affairs are my business. If you have any complaints, talk to the preacher. My department doesn't do customer service.
Stop leading him into danger. You've been warned.
Without waiting for a response, the businesswoman turned and left.
Whoa, a lot of tension here today. Anyways, I got permission for us to use the Flying Dutchman. The High Priestess has agreed. It is being prepared in the garden. We should go.
Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, with joyful ring, all caroling.
Maybe we'll get the chance to carol after we blow up the prison.
Or we could just blow it up to Jingle Bells.
The siblings exchanged grins, the weight of the mission momentarily lightened by the absurdity of their situation. Christmas night was about to get a lot more interesting. As they prepared for the dangerous task ahead, each of them focused on their own ritual of readiness. Oppenheimer worked meticulously, his hands steady as he assembled several explosives. The tools of his trade, wires, detonators, and a variety of chemicals were laid out in front of him like a surgeon's instruments. He handled each component with the utmost care, ensuring that every device was perfectly calibrated. His face held a rare intensity as he double-checked his work, his mind already calculating the best ways to make use of these little packages of destruction. Akasha, on the other hand, preferred a more personal approach to her preparations. She spread out an array of knives, each one gleaming wickedly under the dim light. Her fingers danced over the blades, selecting the ones she would carry, each knife chosen for a specific purpose, destined to serve her in a moment of need. With practiced ease, she began hiding them on her person, tucking them into boots, sliding them into hidden sheaths and securing them under her sleeves. Satisfied, she pulled out a well-worn deck of tarot cards, shuffling them with a flick of her wrist. The cards were a source of comfort and power, a connection to the future and her ability to read it, something she often relied on. She stuffed the deck into a concealed pocket, a secret weapon of a different kind. Jolene's preparation was more chaotic, yet no less effective. She rummaged through a bag filled with an assortment of oddities, trinkets and tools, each one with a story and a use only she truly understood. Her bag was a Pandora's box of possibilities, filled with gadgets and gizmos that could get them out of any number of tight spots. She carefully selected the items she'd need, from lock-picking tools to small mechanical devices that could be used for distractions or sabotage. Her hands moved quickly, grabbing what she needed and stashing it away, her mind racing with potential scenarios and the solutions she might need to pull from her bag. With their preparations complete, the three siblings reconvened at the far north of Dreadford's National Forest, near Lake Dreadford. They moved, taking great care not to draw the attention of the King's Court or any other unwelcome eyes. As they approached the old stone bridge, they were met by four men, each eerily identical, appearing as strong 30-year-old men with cold, lifeless eyes. Even after all this time, the Morrigans were not accustomed to the High Priestess's unsettling servants.
The Flying Dutchman is a vessel of the Shadowlands, a realm of ghosts and lost souls. You must navigate it carefully or risk being lost forever. Be prepared. The moment you step aboard, you'll be in the waters of the Valley of Shadow and Death.
The four spoke at the same time, their voices intertwined perfectly, while one of the strange men guided them under the bridge. As they followed, a swift disorientation overtook them, a sensation like slipping between the cracks of reality. Mist closed in around them, bringing with it a biting chill, and they knew they had crossed the threshold into another world. The other three men trailed them silently, their presence only adding to the creepy atmosphere.
You are not exactly filling us with confidence here.
Don't worry, the ship is needed for us to reach the prison without anyone noticing.
So you really know the location of the prison? The legendary pit where the King's Court sends their rejects? I can already see the ghost of Christmas past waiting to give us the grand tour. Maybe we'll get a festive little haunting. Fa la 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 la, freaky!
The servant barely acknowledged the joke.
An anathema is required to guide the ship through the Shadowlands. Mother has prepared one to accompany you. He is waiting aboard.
As they approached, the Flying Dutchman loomed out of the mist like a spectre, a ship born from nightmares. Its sails were torn and frayed, yet it moved smoothly over the black water, propelled by some unseen force. The ship's wood groaned under the weight of countless years, each creak a reminder of the souls who had suffered upon its cursed decks. Ghostly figures whispered in the fog, their forms barely visible before dissolving into the shadows. The three Morrigans boarded the ship, its ancient timbers cold and unwelcoming beneath their feet. The stench of decay and the despair of the trapped souls clung to the atmosphere like a shroud. As the ship prepared to depart, they caught a fleeting glimpse of the garden where the High Priestess resided. It was a place of unnatural beauty. Every flower, leaf and tree, a deep crimson, as if fashioned from blood itself. These otherworldly plants swayed gently. Their vibrant hue stood in stark contrast to their grim surroundings. With a sudden lurch, the Flying Dutchman set off, leaving the blood garden behind. The ship glided through the Shadowlands with an eerie grace, the sea around them transforming into an inky black void. Jolene stood at the ship's railing, her eyes narrowed as she peered into the abyss. She felt the presence of restless souls pressing against the hull, their mournful cries barely audible. She was sure something was peering back at her. The Shadowlands were alive with the dead, but death was nothing new to Jolene or her siblings. After all, they were Nosferatu.
Hey sis, you planning on making friends with the dead, or are you just sightseeing? We've got a plan to finalize, and I don't think the ghosts are gonna help us with it.
Just making sure we're the only ones on this ghost ship. But yeah, let's go inside. Oppenheimer's probably waiting with one of his brilliant ideas.
These bloodborns give me the chills. They're all identical, like they were carved from the same unsettling mold. I mean, what even are they?
They're creations of the High Priestess. Born directly from her garden, they've never been mortal and they've never received the gift of Babylon. They're born as they are, perfectly identical and quite devoted. They serve her in the garden, while the servants she sends to the outside are the anathemas. Nosferatu twisted by an old style rite that strips away any trace of their humanity and turns them into monsters. Each house becomes a different kind of anathema.
Well, that's not terrifying at all.
They stepped into a cabin where Oppenheimer was waiting.
Well, ladies, time to get ready for the main event.
The three siblings took their seats around a worn wooden table, the dim lantern light casting long shadows across their faces.
Our objective is the dead man's prison, the place where the King's Court hides away vampires and other beings they don't want destroyed, just forgotten. We're going there to rescue the 4 bloodlings who got caught after we took down Don Vittorio.
And how exactly did you find this so-called secret prison?
Oppenheimer's smile widened, a glint of something almost mischievous in his eyes.
2 of those bloodlings, Leon and Javier, they're my vampiric children. The court would love to interrogate them, and I knew I could follow their blood by the bond between sire and child straight back to the prison.
You allowed them to get caught on purpose.
Oppenheimer simply smiled, leaving the question hanging in the air like the ghostly mist that surrounded the Flying Dutchman. He leaned over the table, his fingers tracing a rough sketch of an island near the coast of Dreadford.
It's here, an old maximum security penitentiary for mortals, now long abandoned. The court has repurposed it, and beneath the ruins, in the underground tunnels from the 19th century, is where they've hidden their true prison. It's a labyrinth of traps, alarms, and shadows. The warden is a Nosferatu of House Urkula, a creature as twisted and ancient as the prison itself, and he commands an army of wraiths.
Akasha and Jolene listened intently, their eyes narrowed as he continued.
The place is haunted not just by wraiths, but members of House Moroi act as jailers in the depths of the complex.
Jolene shivered slightly at the mention of wraiths, but Akasha seemed almost amused.
You've been busy, Oppie. You're never this forthcoming with information. What gives?
Once I pinpointed the location of the prison, I sought help from Beatrix Vanderhoven. She sent a wraith under her command to infiltrate it, posing as one of the Warden's own. With this little scouting mission, we managed to gather some intel.
He unfolded a hand-drawn sketch of several tunnels and chambers detailing the underground of the island. Akasha grinned, clearly pleased.
Well, this is a treat. It's not every day you hand us the keys to the castle. How about I see if the cards have anything to add?
She reached for a deck of tarot cards, the edges worn and familiar, carrying the weight of countless readings. With a flourish, she spread the deck across the table. The cards landed in a chaotic pattern that seemed random to the untrained eye, but held deep meaning for her. She closed her eyes for a moment, then began turning them over, one by one. Oppenheimer watched closely, a flicker of recognition in his eyes.
You do it just like her, don't you?
Don't mention it.
She muttered before focusing back on the cards. As she flipped a card, her eyes widened. It had the image of a carefree figure on the brink of a cliff, about to step off into the unknown.
The Fool.
This is our path. When we reach the underground, we'll come to a junction where all logic says to turn back. But we'll need to trust in the unknown and take that leap of faith. The Warden doesn't expect anyone to be reckless enough to use it. That's where we strike.
She pointed to one of the tunnels in the drawing. Akasha pointed to another card, the Nine of Swords. The image of a figure sitting upright in bed, hands covering his face, surrounded by 9 swords hanging over him.
The Nine of Swords. Fear. Nightmares. We'll be walking into a place that preys on our worst fears, our deepest regrets. But this card also means that the worst is often in our minds. If we can face our fears, we'll find a way through.
She pointed to the next card, the Three of Pentacles. 3 figures were working together to build something, their efforts combining into a single structure.
Collaboration. This isn't a task we can accomplish alone. We'll need to rely on each other, on all our strengths to make it to the end.
Then she took the 5 of Wands, showing a group of figures locked in combat, their staffs clashing.
Conflict. We're gonna face resistance, perhaps from within the prison, or even from the Ras. It won't be straightforward, but we can use the chaos to our advantage. Find the cracks in their defense while they're distracted.
The card that followed was the 6 of Swords. It depicted a boatman steering a small vessel across the water, carrying passengers toward a distant shore.
Transition. This is our journey through the underground, a path that will take us from danger to safety. If we can navigate it wisely, we'll need to keep moving, never linger too long in one place.
She flipped the Hanged Man, depicting a figure suspended upside down.
Sacrifice. We'll need to make a difficult choice. Give something up to proceed. This isn't going to be a clean operation.
Next was the 7 of Cups, showing a figure overwhelmed by 7 cups, each holding a different tempting vision.
Illusion. We'll encounter something that's not what it seems. A deception. But we must stay focused on our goal, not get distracted by what looks appealing but isn't real.
And last was the Devil. The image of a horned figure loomed over the card, its presence ominous.
Temptation. Binding. We'll face something dark, something that will try to hold us back, keep us trapped. We need to be wary of anything that seems too easy. There's always a cost.
Akasha gathered the cards back up. Jolene nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities.
We'll have to move fast then. Exploit that weakness before they realize we've found it. Let's hope the Warden's as arrogant as his old.
Oppenheimer folded the map and stood, his smile returning.
Then it's settled. We strike through the Fool's Path.
The siblings exchanged glances, the tension of the mission balanced by the thrill of the hunt. This would be no ordinary rescue, but they had the intel they needed. Now all that was left was to execute their plan, face the horrors of the prison, and hope the cards had read true. The Dutchman emerged from the mists, slipping into the material realm with a ghostly grace. The ancient ship's tattered sails flapped gently in the wind as it cut through the dark waters, the island looming ahead. Against the starless sky, the crumbling structures of the once imposing prison stood silent and foreboding. Midnight cast an eerie stillness over the island. broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the hull as the ship neared the shore. In the ship's shadowy depths, Jolene could hear the mournful cries of unseen wraiths. She could sense them, the restless spirits tethered to the island, their sorrowful energies pulsing faintly. Immediately, she weaved a powerful illusion to conceal the ship now that it was back into the material world. Heavy footsteps echoed behind her. Jolene turned to see a towering wolfman emerge from the shadows. His hulking form was a blend of man and beast, muscles rippling beneath a pelt of midnight black fur. His eyes glowed faintly as he gazed down at her.
We're about to land.
Thank you, Abaddon. Stay with the ship. We'll need you to be ready for escape.
I'll be here, little crow.
As the ship glided into a hidden cove, its keel scraping gently against the rocky shore, the siblings checked their gear one last time. They disembarked in silence. Their boots sank into the damp sand as they moved swiftly into the cover of the island's jagged rocks. Above them, the prison loomed like a dark fortress of stone and shadows. Jolene paused, her senses stretching out into the darkness. The ghosts were there as she expected, their spectral forms drifting among the ruins like pale memories. She could feel their cold, lingering presence, their sorrow and anger, the emotions of lives long lost. They were bound to the Warden's will, patrolling the desolate landscape in a ceaseless, mournful vigil.
We'll stick to the shadows. There are fewer ghosts along the western side. I can guide us through, but we'll need to move quickly and stay silent.
Lead the way, Jolene.
With a final glance at the Dutchman, now hidden in the misty cove, the siblings began their approach. Jolene summoned her power, weaving an illusion around them to make them nearly invisible against the rocky terrain. They moved as one, slipping through the ruins like phantoms. Their journey was tense, the air thick with the presence of the restless dead. Jolene's heart would be pounding if she was still alive. But her instincts held true, and she guided them, avoiding the concentrations of ghosts that clustered near. The ghosts of the island were everywhere, pale specters drifting through the ruins, their hollow eyes sometimes fixed on the vampires with a cold, unwavering stare, before moving on. They scaled crumbling walls and slipped through narrow gaps in silence. Finally, they reached the entrance to the prison, a massive archway of ancient stone that loomed above them like the maw of some great slumbering beast. The stone was blackened, scorched by time and weather, and covered in a thick layer of moss. The darkness beyond the entrance was impenetrable. The air was thick with the scent of decay and damp earth, a cloying smell that clung to their senses.
This is it. No turning back now.
Good work, Jolene. Let's finish this.
The silence was oppressive, the kind that suffocates and crushes the spirit. She turned to her siblings, her eyes meeting theirs in the dim light. Oppenheimer's eyes gleamed with determination, his hand reassuring on her shoulder. They stepped into the darkness, the shadows closing around them. Oppenheimer took the lead. Each step was cautious, his eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Jolene stayed close behind, her senses attuned to the ghostly whispers that permeated the air. Akasha brought up the rear, her eyes glowing faintly as she relied on her divination. Finally, they reached a vast chamber. The ceiling stretched high above them, disappearing into the inky blackness, and the walls were lined with the remains of ancient cells. Rusted iron bars jutted out, and the floor was littered with debris, shattered stones, broken bones, and the tattered remnants of prisoners long forgotten.
This place reeks of death.
Oppenheimer nodded, his eyes narrowing as he focused on the task ahead.
We have to find the watchtower. That's where the Warden's eyes are. From there, he can project his senses to the whole island.
It didn't take long to find the crumbling structure. The watchtower stood tall and menacing, its ancient stones blackened and cracked. Faint glimmers of light flickered from the windows at the top. The three Morrigans ascended the stairs, only to be confronted by a bizarre and intricate contraption, a fusion of ancient sorcery and technology. A large glowing sphere crowned its top, swirling with energy that resembled a living nebula. Tendrils of black, cable-like conduits extended from the sphere, snaking outward and embedding themselves into the walls and ceiling, as if the device had dominion over the entire space. The base of the device was a towering cylindrical structure, adorned with intricate glyphs and runes etched deeply into metal panels. Around the base, glowing green fluids pulsed with energy, amplifying its power. Suspended around the device were floating metallic discs, orbiting the apparatus in a slow, graceful dance. These discs shimmered with strange, gravitational properties, defying natural law. This was the focal point of the Warden's surveillance, the device through which his senses could project across the entire island, allowing him to see, hear, and feel everything within his domain.
We have to take this down. If we don't, the warden will know the moment we go underground. We could blow it up!
Oppenheimer's hand instinctively went to the explosive strapped to his belt. Jolene shook her head.
No, we need to do this carefully. It's partially mystical. We need to understand what we're dealing with before we act. I can't take it apart.
Oppenheimer frowned but nodded in agreement.
All right. Jolene, you're up.
Jolene stepped forward and studied the intricate contraption before her. She could feel the pulse of the apparatus, its rhythm almost like a heartbeat, syncing with the malevolent energy that filled the air. This was no ordinary device. It was alive, in a way connected to the island. To the warden, she worked with precision, her hands already probing the enchanted contraptions, her fingers deftly manipulating the arcane mechanisms that powered the warden's surveillance. Her sharp mind pieced together its function as she probed for weak points. She reached into her bag, retrieving a set of delicate picks and probes. She always came prepared. She inserted a thin, needle-like probe into a seam between two metal plates, carefully prying them apart without triggering the protective wards etched into the metal. She studied the shifting glow of the central crystal, carefully observing the sequence of colors and the rhythm of the pulsing light. She realized it was a pattern that governed the flow of energy within the apparatus. Jolene smiled to herself, a challenge but nothing she couldn't handle. Suddenly, Akasha tensed.
He's noticed something. We should move faster.
Before they could react, a low, guttural hiss echoed through the watchtower. Oppenheimer didn't hesitate. Drawing a knife from his belt, he stepped toward the entrance.
Jolene, finish this. Akasha, you're with me.
As soon as they exited the watchtower, a monstrous figure emerged from the shadows. A Nosferatu with a twisted form, part man, part spider. Its limbs were elongated and spindly, covered in bristling hairs, and its eyes gleamed with a predatory hunger. It moved with unnatural speed, lunging at Oppenheimer. He barely had time to raise his arms before the creature was upon him, its clawed limbs slashing at him with deadly precision. He blocked the initial strikes, his muscles straining as he held the creature at bay, but it was relentless, its attacks coming faster and faster. The chamber erupted into chaos, the sound of their struggle filling the air. Akasha darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's snapping mandibles. As she moved, several prison guards, drawn by the commotion, rushed into the chamber, weapons drawn. They brandished a mix of ancient swords and modern firearms, their eyes glinted with malice. With a fluid motion, Akasha drew her hidden knives, her body moving with inhuman speed as she danced through the oncoming assault. Her blades flashed as she deflected strikes and countered with lethal precision. Gunshots rang out, bullets tearing through the air, but Akasha moved like a shadow, her agility allowing her to evade the deadly projectiles with ease. She weaved between the guards, and as they realized their shots were hitting their own, they ceased fire and closed in for melee combat.
Intruders near the warden's eyes. Send backup. I repeat, send backup.
Oppenheimer grunted as the grotesque vampire slammed him against a wall, its claws digging into his flesh. Laughing in defiance, he grabbed one of the creature's legs and twisted with all his strength. The sickening snap of bone echoed through the chamber as the limb broke, and the creature let out a screech of pain. It lashed out with its other limbs, its eyes glowing with fury. Jolene, still focused on the sabotage, worked frantically as the battle raged. Her hands moved swiftly as she bypassed security rooms with a series of precise cuts and adjustments. She inserted another tool into a crackling junction of wires, redirecting the flow of energy. The green glowing accents on the device sputtered and sparked as she systematically disabled its energy conduits. The floating metallic discs that hovered around the apparatus trembled, their gravitational fields destabilizing, the warden's surveillance system gradually losing its grip on the island. Akasha spun, her knives slashing through the air as she took down another guard. The ground around her was littered with bodies, yet more kept coming, their eyes burning with fanaticism. They struck at her from all angles and she deflected and dodged with acrobatic grace. It was as if she anticipated the attacks before they even began. The thirst crept at the edges of her mind, but she pushed it aside, her focus razor sharp. Relenting wasn't an option, not now. Oppenheimer wrestled the monstrous vampire to the ground, grappling in the dirt as the creature's fangs snapped just inches from his face. Drawing on the cursed blood surging through him, he gripped the fangs at the ends of its chelicerae, one in each hand, and wrenched them apart with a sickening crunch. The creature tilted back, screaming in agony, exposing its chest. In a flash, Oppenheimer drew a knife and plunged it deep into the creature's clavicle, releasing a spray of black blood. As the monster tried to heal, he twisted the blade, making the wound even wider. The blood drained too fast for the creature to recover. It fell to the ground, limp and barely conscious. Its body twitched and curled in itself like a dying spider. Oppenheimer, blood dripping from his wounds, scanned the chamber. Akasha had dispatched the last of the guards, and she stood with a satisfied smile on her lips.
Jolene, how much longer?
Almost there. Just a little more.
Her fingers a blur as she made some adjustments. Jolene's focus was absolute. The warden's oppressive presence weighed on her mind. She could feel the device fighting back, as if it were a living extension of his will. She pulled a vial from her bag and injected a neutralizing agent into the tubes. The liquid inside hissed and changed color, its energy diffusing into harmless vapor. Finally, Jolene reached the core of the apparatus. The crystal's light flickered weakly now, its glow dimming as the energy that powered it was carefully siphoned away. With a single decisive cut, she severed the last connection, a thin silvery wire that pulsed with a faint green light. The swirling energy inside it dissipated, and the entire device groaned as if it were an ancient beast breathing its last. The floating discs around it dropped to the floor with a dull clang, and the once radiant glow faded entirely, leaving the chamber in near darkness. She stepped back. The apparatus was neutralized.
Ha! It's done.
She left the watchtower and regrouped with her siblings. Oppenheimer nodded. With the warden's eyes blinded, they had a chance. Jolene glanced at the grotesque, spider-like creature, her eyes widening in surprise, the cursed vampire coughing blood in his last moments.
So they really have Nosferatu from Hasmoroi here.
Akasha crouched beside one of the fallen guards, her fangs elongated as she prepared to sink them into the corpse's neck, desperate for the blood to replenish her strength. But before she could bite down, Jolene's sharp voice cut through the tension.
Akasha, don't!
Almost gotcha. It doesn't matter. You are all destroyed already. Your mission is doomed to fail, you goddamned ravens.
You know, a gathering of ravens is what you might call an unkindness, a treachery, a conspiracy. And that is all fine and dandy, but the crow, it remembers when it's slighted. It never forgets. Never. Even from the grave, they protect their own. When you slight one crow, you slight them all. Now you see, do you know what a gathering of crows is called?
The Morrigan said, as he approached the vampire, stepping on its legs, forcing them to budge and break underneath his weight. The creature winced in pain and coughed blood as Oppenheimer approached, revealing Akasha and Jolene behind him, and at his sides terror started to fill his eyes.
It's called a murder of crows.